Voglio fotografare la macchina. Dai, ma queste sono cose che non si possono fare.
Un po' io va? Grazie, va. Marco De Levi?
Ventiquattro. 24.
24?
Sì.
Perché me ne comprare così? 36 minuti.
Domenica, Domenica, dietro di te.
Questo a sinistra l'edificio di General Motors e a destra la strada per S.A. Oswald. Questo è molto più grande. To the left, the famous jewelry Silva Tower, la Torre Trump.
No, ma guarda, cosa discorso.
Il modello della rampa scritta.
Sì, un po' uno skate.
La rampa.
And in the next block, 57th Street and Broadway, is the Hard Rock Café. 57th Street and Broadway. Próximo bloque, Hard Rock Café.
Sta scritto pure sulla guida il numero dei taxi che c'è stato. Cinema, questo è in cinema.
And our next stop will be for Times Square, that is the square, que es distrito de los teatri. Si lei quiere comprar entradas, tickets para el teatro, en la strada 47 in Broadway, si lei fa una linea desde temprano,
Mazza qua,
Oggi non so. Dai vai giù via.
L'NBCC.
Dove passi, guarda.
Promenado per Rockefeller Center. Estamos viendo nuevamente la hermosa promenada, ahora con un dinosaurio. Sí, ¿qué pasa? ¿Por qué? This is the Congress, and this carries 6 million volumes. A la derecha estamos viendo la biblioteca pública, la número 2 más grande de los Estados Unidos. La primera está en el Congreso. Esto tiene 6 millones de volúmenes. Questa è la segunda più grande en los Estados Unidos, $3.75 for adults, $1.75 for children. Nuestra próxima parada es para el Empire State Building, lo estamos viendo delante nuestro a la derecha, terminado en 1931, tiene 102 pisos y 2 observatorios. Uno en el piso 80. And we can see to the left Madison Square. This was the original location of the Madison Square Garden, where the hockey and basketball games are played. And now it's in 7th Avenue and 32nd Street. A la izquierda estamos viendo la Plaza Madison, el lugar original del Madison Square Garden, donde se juegan los juegos de hockey y basketball. Ahora está en la 7ª Avenida y la calle 32. And ahead of us, this triangular building, this is the Flatiron Building. Was built in 1902, it has just 21 stories. But delante nuestro, el edificio triangular es el edificio Plancha de Hierro, construido en 1902, tiene nada más que 21 pisos, pero para su época fue el primer rascacielos are just... And we are now entering Chinatown. Chinatown is the largest Chinese community living outside China. They are here 150,000 people.
Wow.
Estamos entrando en... Estamos en el centro cívico, donde están la mayoría de las oficinas del gobierno. And we will see behind the federal building the courthouse of the United States. Through the street, a white building with colors. El centro de intercambio financiero diseñado por un arquitecto argentino, César Félix. Son las bases de las firmas American Express, Merrill Lynch and Dow Jones. Están acá junto con el famoso jardín Nokia. Yes, okay.
Lascia la borsa. Lascia la borsa.
You can see here to the left, the garage. Liberty to the right now. To the right.
Ahí.
Mile 17 is the largest sailboat in the world. The Peking that used to be a prisoner boat and now is a museum. Questo è il porto. Questo è il mercato di pesci.
Quello è il primo, il ponte di Brooklyn.
E solo drone e stanno a terra. E anche qua, Staten Island, Brooklyn, Manhattan, e Queens sono isole. And 18.5 million people live in the city of New York, 1.5 million in Manhattan, 4 million in Brooklyn, 20% of the population. And here behind the flags we can see the building of the General Assembly.
Questo è l'edificio dell'Assemblea Generale.
We have a stop here for Dora Lynn Hotel, 49th Street and Lexington. She's a very rich woman. She's 73 years old. And she's in jail for 4 years because she didn't pay the taxes.
building, you do not include anything that is not occupiable. And so the 35-story television antenna doesn't count. That building is tall enough you can conduct an experiment in gravity. And so the 35-story television antenna doesn't count. That building is tall enough you can conduct an experiment in gravity with your family. If you take a scale, a bathroom scale to the World Trade Center, little paper and pencil, write down everybody's weight on the scale before you go up. And on the top, a couple of minutes later, if you weigh everyone again, every member of your family will weigh less. No mystery. Answer, gravity. You are far enough off the surface of the Earth that gravity has a lesser pull. So better. The marina there, one of the most expensive in the Northeast, certainly the most expensive in New York. $600 a night is the cost for your yacht. If you'd like a permanent berth, the cost is $15,000 per year per foot of space you take up at the marina. The curved glass building just to the right of the white canopy is well worth a visit. It is called the Winter Garden. Biggest Grand Central terminal. It has live 45-foot tall California palm trees, a sweeping Italian marble staircase, shops, restaurants, and boutiques, dining off restaurants. We're headed out to a couple of those picnic islands. Ahead of us on the right, Ellis Island coming up. Nobody answered his ad. He decided he still wanted to get rid of the island, and he decided, well, if I can't sell it, I will rent it. He took the bid of the highest bidder for rental. That happened to be our own government. He got $10 a year. That was all he got, $10 a year for the island. Nobody had much idea that it was of any value. Our government built a fortress that has been torn down to make way for the immigration station, which is the building with the 4 ornate towers and the red roof. There are 32 other buildings on the island, dormitories, no dining room at all. Space was needed for bunks. That would bring in money, so everybody stood in line for their food. And when you got it, you went back to sit on your bed and eat it. Your bed was a hunk of $30 does not seem like a lot of money. Today it isn't. It certainly was then. Our records in the Lower East Side show it would take you about a year and a half to save $30 under the following conditions. It's 1892. You're working a minimum wage. You're working an average of 6. All you have done is just put a roof over your head and feed your family. No clothes, no entertainment, no savings for somebody else to come to the States. Nothing. That second job, if you're working 12 hours a day for someone else, that would mean you are working for yourself. So I come home after 12 days. I'm a carpenter. I'm starting to build things in the apartment. Cabinets, chairs. I'll sell them on the streets when I'm finished. My wife is a seamstress. The island ahead of us on the right. His name is not that well known as Ellis's, simply because the name of this island was officially changed when the statue was dedicated on it, October 28, 1886. And now we know the island as Liberty Island. It's 4 times bigger than when Mr. Commemorates our association in the American Revolution. It is a much more fragile piece of work than it looks. It is composed of 300 hand-hammered Norwegian copper plates, not much more than 1/16 of an inch thick. The only way they are held in place, the only way they're held from twisting and buckling, and he hired for the framework. Frederick Bartholdi is the name of the sculptor. He hired a bridge builder of renown in France, Gustave Eiffel, to do the iron framework. This statue was built in a public park in Paris over a 4-year period, most of the time with the iron framework. And so when Eiffel finished his work in 1885, he was hired by the organizers of the World's Fair in Paris to go across the River Seine and design something for their fair of 1889. And the tower that Eiffel built put him on the map. The statue, as you see it now, does not at all look as it would had Bartholdi's first idea been accepted. You would be looking at a man, not a woman. The left hand would be extended towards you, holding broken chains, and you'd have to look somewhere else, not on Bedloe's Island. It wouldn't have been here. The reason for all the change. First of all, this statue was built by people, not a government. The government was the Second Empire of France. It was not a republic. And it was felt that a male statue holding broken chains would symbolize to the government of France, hey, these people want to revolt against us. Let's shut down the building of the statue, tear it down. And real fire visible 50 miles at sea. And the statue would have faced the ocean. Our government turned that down as too risky, too big, too dangerous. Bartholdi came here for the first time in 1874, and right ahead of him and ahead of everyone who comes into our harbor is this island called Bedloes Island. And so he asked for it. The statue would be perfectly balanced and placed on this fortress, and by that time he did have the design of a woman. The idea of the chains were gone, except that he insisted somewhere he would place broken chains. That is why her left, or rather her right foot, is kicking backwards. If you were above her, and only if you were above her, you could see what she is doing. She is throwing off the chains at her feet. The book then in the left hand replaced the chains. It says July 4, 1776. World War II has been the biggest Coast Guard station in the world. At any one time, they're looking at about 2,000 ships that are in the general New York City vicinity. There's an old fortress coming up here on this island, just ahead on our right, Castle William. You may not be able to tell as we go by, there are bars on all of the windows. That place was turned into a prisoner of war camp by the American government for our Civil War. And Confederate soldiers were held there. It was a prisoner of war camp right on through World War II. When the Coast Guard turned over, perhaps in a bit of whimsy, they turned it into the daycare center for their children. It is still a prison. It is still ready to go for the next round. But for right now, it is a daycare center. We're following a Staten Island ferry. A big orange boat just made its turn to go into dock. The Staten Island ferry is one of the things that is cheaper now than when it began. It is now 50 cents round trip. Got a wall to the north, and the British never bothered to breach the wall at all. The reason this is called New York is the idea that came from the brother of the King of England to take the town of New Amsterdam by simply occupying the countryside to the north. What that did was to occupy every farm that supplied food to New Amsterdam. And with no food in town, the Dutch had to turn control over to the British simply because the British gave them a couple of alternatives. Alternative one, we go to war, not very easily winnable by the Dutch. Alternative number two, on a peaceful means, the town turns to British rule. We're going to go under 20 bridges as we go about. New York in total has 874 of them. The first bridge ahead of us is probably the best known. It is the Brooklyn Bridge, and if we were to have taken the picture directly ahead, the year it opened, 1883, 110 years ago, it would dominate that picture. There would be no building of any size that was as tall as the walkway to the bridge. Not the top of the tower. They all swept back to the tower, creating a beautiful wing-like effect, but placing a lot more weight on the towers, and so we'll pass the most massive bridge towers anywhere in our waters when we'll pass the Brooklyn Bridge. Up ahead of us to the left, these two white piers coming out are for tennis and racquetball. And just this side of them, there is a small white boat which is pointing at the old northern part of the Dutch city. It's Wall Street, and Wall Street will angle to the left as we go by it, angle southward. Many decades after the British took over, a church was built right in the center of Wall Street, blocking the when the Brooklyn Bridge went up. And it'll be past the double flags there as the street swings open. Sun shining on it, but still easy to make out with the other building right behind it. Off the bow to the left, amongst the ships, there's a big black-hulled ship with 4 cream-colored masts. If you were a sailor aboard that ship, and if you were swept overboard during the day, enjoy your day. Have a good time. But we're not stopping. You were on your own. They had to do that for a couple of reasons. One, keeping their schedule. Many people were blown overboard. And two, there's no way you could turn that ship, which just went under sail, fast enough to catch anybody. They'd be swept away. They lost an average of 4 people a trip, and that is a completely sail-operated vessel. We built our sailing ships of wood. They did not in Europe, steel and iron. And those are amongst the ships on display to show you what it would have been like at the busiest seaport in the United States. Here is the South Street Seaport. And in the 1820s, we did become the busiest seaport in the country. You can go aboard the ships, you can go into the museums, you can shop and dine at the Big Red Pier, and you will certainly find the Golden Statue, our municipal building, government offices in New York City. On the Brooklyn side of the bridge, the building that says Watchtower, part only of the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. That is their publishing plant there, capable of producing 160,000 magazines an hour. The little cream-colored lighthouse, all boarded up with a red roof here on the right at the foot of Fulton Street, the last of the old ferry terminals. We had ferry service before we had bridges. And most of the ferry boats felt they would indeed stay in business. They would not be driven out of business by the bridges. They were quite wrong, but their logic was sound. In 1883, the first bridge to come over the East River, right here, the Brooklyn Bridge, came up. You would pay 1 penny to walk the Brooklyn Bridge. If you wanted to ride across it, there was a shuttle service. There was a horse and buggy that went back and forth. That was 5 cents. If you ran a ferry service, that was a penny to ride the ferry boat. So you would assume you would lose a little business, people going on the bridge to see what it was like. You wouldn't lose it for long. They don't want to walk that distance. 5 times over the cost to ride the bridge as to ride the ferry boat. So you figure you're safe. Figured very logically. Didn't work out, though. People flocked to the bridges at the rate of about 100,000 a day and abandoned the ferry boats, and they went out of business. When the automobile was invented, that also was 5 cents, and that is how the bridges were paid for, nickels and pennies. The blue bridge ahead of us is the Manhattan Bridge. Tower. That is the center of Chinatown. On this side of Canal Street in Manhattan, you have tea, jade, dim sum, China, and on the other side, pasta, cappuccino, calzone, Little Italy, right across. One side and the other. In the early 1980s, there was a conflict in the Malvinas, the Falkland Islands. The government of Great Britain took 2 flat-bottom troop transports and hauled them down. One has a water view. It's just another slammer. The portholes are all shut. The only time you see outside is the exercise yard up on top. They have proved to be much, much more economical than any other means of prison. In other words, buying a land and clearing it. And they've proven to be faster. They're much less politically sensitive. And we have 2 of them. It is the Williamsburg Bridge on pass coming into Manhattan at the Lower East Side of Delancey Street. And these bridges, the 2 we passed under and the next one up, changed the face of Brooklyn radically. People getting out of the cramped quarters of the Lower East Side and New York as we knew it in the lower part of the island and moving to the open lands of Brooklyn. Brooklyn was so open in those days, the team in the National Baseball League was not the Brooklyn Dodgers, it was called the Brooklyn Robins, open countryside, and that changed when people got out of their apartments. That $2 a week apartment in 1892 would have 3 rooms, a 6th-floor walk-up, each room 100 square feet, 1 window in your apartment, no indoor plumbing, heating, or lighting in your building. People got out.
Va, Piazza Venezia.
is not only very pretty, it also is the reason they won the race to build the world's tallest building. Those half circles, ever smaller, are stainless steel with a dark triangular indentation. Stainless steel that had never been used on a building before on the outside. And you would always build a building by bringing the material to the outside, lifting it by crane up on the side, and then pushing it in. That was going to be. But they decided to let the other two buildings race. They would wait. And when the other two finished, whoever was taller, Empire State would then build one taller than that. Pretty well as Chrysler began to race. And when Chrysler got to the point under those half circles where they had put on that tall rounded panel, they were 2 feet shorter than 40 Wall Street at that point. Neither building had topped off. They were still going. Chrysler brought out the stainless steel from inside and began to assemble it. And in essence said, we can do this faster than you. We can do this cheaper than you. We will leave you in the dust. We will continue to build until you quit. No way you can beat us. 40 Wall decided that was right. There was no way they could keep up. They quit. They painted their roof turquoise. They lost the race. And Chrysler won it with that beautiful Art Deco top. 77 stories, the world's tallest building in 1930. The title lasted just under 9 months. Empire State began to build within days after Chrysler's finished, and Empire built at the astonishing rate of 4.5 stories a week by working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they built the thing in a little less than 9 months and took the title World's Tallest Building in 1931. Here's the United Nations. This is the biggest international gathering area in the world. To the immediate right of the round white satellite dish, as we look at it, the long slender building is the Security Council. By the way, the building on the left of the dish, no one in there yet. Lunch hasn't been served. It is the delegates' dining room. You do not need to be a delegate if you decide to go there. Just make a reservation and go in. The tall green glass building looking at us is the Secretariat, the offices of the United Nations. The darker building of green glass across the street houses the offices of all 184 member nations. So they will not have to go home in order to, that is all the way across town, in order to phone their home country. The dark dome that's being worked on in white now stands above the building with a sloping roof. That is the General Assembly building. The two countries that have missions right here, one is the United States. We just see the top of the white latticework building behind the General Assembly. If you look through the trees, you will see the flags of the nations. There is France, Germany, Greece. They fly in the alphabetical order of the English language. And the other country whose mission is here is Turkey. That is their red flag on top of the building with a star and crescent. This is international territory. You do not need a passport to get in. No taxes in the shops, no taxes in the restaurants. Open 7 days a week, starting at 9 a.m. A little-known cocktail lounge and light dinner service is the building off about 1 block inland here on the street with a blue and American flag. Looks almost portrait-like in kind of an orangish color with a black wraparound glass. It's on top of the tower at Beekman Tower. The Silver Building is Sequoia Planet Earth to the south for solar heating. The 8th tallest building in the world, 4th tallest in Manhattan, headquarters of the biggest streets. This was a tuberculosis sanitarium that we passed. The bigger building just upriver from it is the biggest hospital in New York City in the 1850s, Old City Hospital. The island being bulldozed out, the 22-room apartment on 5th Avenue, and the white building on the corner. Marilyn Monroe called that home. 6 years, and now Bill Blass at his island. This is the Greensboro Bridge at 59th Street, where the marathon runners this fall will enter Manhattan. For the first time, that rail tram car there on our left will pass the other one over in Manhattan very shortly.
Vedi che c'è, guarda, la teleferica.
At tramway system is the world's only urban aerial tramway system. It's not a ski lift, it's not a sightseeing ride, it is basic transportation from your home on the right to the island on the left.
Ma sto facendo? Domenica, c'è la teleferica. Vieni qua. Guarda qua sopra.
The island on the right has a long history. It is contained in one of the older buildings in town from 1796, an old farmhouse. Up the angled roadway on the right is a gray home with white trim, the old Blackwell farmhouse. The apartments of Roosevelt Island coming up on the right, very inexpensive. This is government housing.
Tanto non vale la pena.
Yankee Stadium on the right, opened for the 1923 baseball season. It's about 20 minutes from Midtown via subway, either side of town. Yankees back in a few days. Just south of the northern bend of Manhattan. To your left, the only hillside that has never been built into. What you see to the left is what we have leveled, the point what we now call civilization in Midtown Manhattan, which looks just like it. Spent 4 years in the military after he graduated from the academy, then got out, went back to farming. We would have never heard of him had it not been for the American Civil War. We'll tell you how he wound up here in a moment. Let's go past the church. There's an opening in the trees and one of the very few buildings of Columbia University that we'll see, and this one of historical import. Columbia buildings, they have green roofs, so you'll see a slanted green roof foundation. In essence, the island to the left should weigh little more now than it did before the buildings were put up in the first place. And that has to do with the weight of the Manhattan schists. You are not damaging the infrastructure of the island by putting a big heavy weight on it. The law says you can't put any more weight than was dug out. To give you an idea of the weight of the Manhattan schist, the Empire State Building is the biggest building, the tallest building in Midtown. It goes 102 stories upward. It goes into the rock only 5 floors, 5 stories, so it is more than 20 times taller than it is deep into the rock. And yet the building does not weigh as much as a square pink building with a triangular roof. Most of that triangular roof is brand new copper, dark brown. And the owners tell me it will take about 5 years for it to be bright green. If you live in this town, they say in about 2 years you will be able to see a greenish tinge on the roof as it begins to change color. We're going to see an unusual ship in just a moment. The Sea Air Space Museum is ahead of us. There are 5 major attractions there. One of you can board and inspect the entire thing. The Nantucket, the Red Hull ship, is one of only 2 light ships there. The carrier we talked about briefly, 946, is the hull member of the destroyer Edson, and just to its left is a black submarine. The missile will look like an airplane to you. To the immediate left of the sail, or the conning tower. At a 45-degree angle will be the missile called Regulus. Sun shining on it. It ranges 500 miles, and it is fired from a surface submarine. Carries an atomic warhead. And if you just want to go up and take a look at it, it's about a 5-minute stroll after you get into the dock. To your left. It will take us a few moments once we get in to tie up the lines and get the gangway out, so there's no need to stand in a long line now. Please do yourself a favor and look under you and all about. It is usual someone will leave something, and we have 2 more trips to do, and then it's all locked up till Monday. Please make sure that you have everything. You'll find people on the pier to assist you. There'll be pictures that were taken aboard all the way forward on the dock. You'll find the restrooms all the way forward on the dock as well. On behalf of Captain Eric Johansson and all of us, thank you very much for traveling with us. We sure do appreciate it. Unfortunately, a little difficult conditions at times this morning. We hope you've enjoyed your stay with us. Let us help you if we can. Have a good time in our city. Godspeed on the way home. Thank you.